Now, very first story, pressure group Occupy Ghana has asked government to scrap any plans to lay off public sector workers as part of conditions set out by the International Monetary Fund and its bailout program. Government, as part of its obligations under the agreement, is expected to rationalize the public sector and reduce the wage bill. But addressing the media in Accra, a leading member of the group, Sydney Hayford, suggested laying off workers is not the only way to reduce the wage bill. Occupy Ghana is meanwhile asking workers to join them to protest the country's economic hardships by wearing red on Friday, May 1.
Occupy Ghana cited several lapses in the management of the country's finances, including poor management of pension funds, increase in fuel prices, and most importantly, the energy crisis, which has compelled several companies to lay off workers. It warns there are likely to be further job cuts with government's IMF deal.
We think that one of the biggest areas of drain in this economy are the ghost workers who are sitting on the payroll. It would be better that government should clean that payroll, sanitize the payroll, and then if it needs additional people, it can then rethink whether or not the number of staff it has in its civil service and public service is inadequate to deliver the results of what it's expecting to achieve. It doesn't necessarily have to be layoffs, it doesn't necessarily have to be a freeze on recruitment. There are many pockets that government could use to actually cut back on the waste, cut back on the corruption, increase the revenue, so it need not let people suffer in these dark times.
The group wants all workers to use May Day to signal to government their frustration with the current economic situation.
We are asking that the significance of May Day on this particular May Day should be shifted. Let it become a voice of protest and a voice of complaint to the government. Let them understand clearly that as much as we are not going to walk the streets attempting to destroy anything and create mayhem, we are at least going to register our protests by making sure that we symbolize the day with something red. A red shoe, a red scarf, a red pair of earrings, a red pair of socks, anything that we can think of that will enhance that day.
The group argues the action signifies people's desire for better governance.
Occupy Ghana has meanwhile giving its full backing to one of its leading members, George Anda, over his decision to contest the parliamentary primaries of the New Patriotic Party. The former telecom sector professional's decision to contest the party's primaries in the Wutu-Senyak West constituency has gotten many questioning Occupy Ghana's neutrality. But Sydney Hayford stressed the group's aim was to fight for better lives for Ghanaians and that it will fully support any of its members who feels they can't serve in a political capacity.
George Anda's decision to enter parliament on the ticket of the opposition New Patriotic Party drew criticisms from sections of the public who felt the pressure group was leaning to one side. Mr. Anda has, however, justified his decision, explaining he believed in the MPP flag bearer, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo.
And I believe that for me to serve with my heart and my mind, I need to have a strong constituency that supports or that is solidly behind me. It's not just about a political party. Yes, 100%. I know that the problems that we are facing in Ghana is because of poor leadership. And I 100% believe in the leadership of Nana Akufo-Addo. I believe in the leadership of Dr. Bawumia. And I believe that with their leadership and their direction, Ghana can work.
The group maintains it will encourage any member who has the will to effect positive change, irrespective of their political affiliation.
If anybody in Occupy Ghana decides that they want to go and join a political party and become a member of parliament, Occupy Ghana will encourage you to do so. Because we want the likes of George Anda, Franklin Kudjo, Sydney Hayford, Ace Ankuma, and all of us who belong to Occupy Ghana to go and occupy parliament. All right? We need good people, good independent thinkers who will do things properly and objectively in our parliament.
The company contracted to produce the plants contracted to produce the plants that are supposed to address the country's energy crisis has indicated that they cannot deliver the plans by the April date announced by government. Now, we'll take the story one more time. I'd like to start from the very beginning. So, the company contracted to produce the plants that will address the country's energy crisis. They have no intentions to deliver the plants by the April date announced by government.
The interim, there is as we said over the last few days, we are building power ships continuously, and we can have an interim power ship of about 120 megawatt in Ghana within 120 days, and that's a discussion that continues and ongoes between myself and the customer. If ECG say they don't want the 120, then they don't want the 120. It doesn't get delivered. It's very, very straightforward. The 120 is an offer that can help to alleviate the current power situation in Ghana. If it's needed, it is there to come early and assist as an interim basis until the second power ship is delivered.
Now, the car power ship director, however, says it could make some power available to Ghana by September.
For clarity, we, Car Power Ship, are providing power ships to bridge the gap towards the sustainability of Ghana being self-sufficient, not to address the short-term emergency need. There are two different things. An emergency need should be for 6 months and then you leave. An emergency should not go on for years. And that's why we have a contract for 10 years, bridging the gap of where Ghana is today to where it has to be in the future to be self-sufficient without any emergency running or any temporary power plant.
Deputy Power Minister John Jinapor, in an interview with Joy FM, confirmed government is now looking at a September date for the delivery of the barges.
Following the establishment of the guarantee, the calendar shifted, and as was indicated, we are looking at within 4 months to 5 months following the calendar.
Okay, so now roughly September.
You don't have it?
Possibly.
Roughly September. Roughly September. Okay.
The Union of Industry, Commerce and Finance Workers, UNICOF, is demanding an immediate resumption of its dialogue with the management of the Agricultural Development Bank over allegations of mismanagement and malfeasance. The union is also seeking a suspension of the planned floating of the initial public offering until it is furnished with full details. UNICOF's intervention is the latest in a standoff between management and workers of the bank over some controversial decisions it has taken in recent times. The General Secretary of UNICOF, John Esiape, tells Joy News dialogue is needed to repair the souring relationship between the management and workers. He was speaking with Joy News' Kemini Amano.
The specific request we made in 2013 has not been followed up and discussed because the indications were that it was still work in progress. It hadn't gotten where we could be invited for that discussion.
In that regard, now that things have got to where they are, what steps are we expecting UNICOF to take going forward?
We expect dialogue to be restored because as it is now, there's no dialogue. Our initial request was for whatever intentions that we heard of in terms of the launching to be suspended because clearly there will be mistrust if management went ahead without our input because they invited us first and foremost so we could give our consent or our support to this whole idea. Now, we were supposed to meet management on the 28th. We had earlier had a discussion and agreed on a date. The only request was for them to put it into writing, and which they gladly did. We went, and they were unwilling to meet us because they said we did not respond, even though there were some reasons why they might not have received our response. But looking at the situation, we did not believe that a meeting that we had even consented to, which necessitated their formalizing it, if we did not follow up with a letter, assuming, but we did, just that they did not receive the letter. But we thought the situation was such urgent that the meeting should have come on. But we only heard that there was some kind of board meeting. So if indeed there was that genuine desire to meet us, at the same time there couldn't have been a board meeting which prevented the meeting from coming on. We, in industrial relations terms, refer to such conduct as bad faith. And when bad faith and mistrust sets in, there is no relationship. So we are not surprised that things are going this way. And when we speak and interact with our membership, the workers of ADB, there is deep-seated animosity against management because they feel let down.
The minority in Parliament, meanwhile, is demanding the Agricultural Development Bank stops processes undertaking to float shares and participate in trading on the Ghana Stock Exchange unless the necessary parliamentary approval is secured. The minority is threatening court action against the bank if it goes ahead. In a letter addressed to the managing director of the bank and copied to the Attorney General and the Minister of Finance, the minority says the bank, being wholly owned by the state, will be in violation of Article 181 of the 1992 Constitution if it goes ahead with the decision to list and trade on the stock exchange without Parliament approval. Management of the Agricultural Development Bank has declined comment on the matter, saying it will address all the issues at a news conference tomorrow. You're watching Joy News Prime here on Joy News on Multi TV. We'll be back after this break. Deputy Finance Minister Kasiela Atoforsen has explained that an audit querying the Auditor General's report for 2012 and 2013 of a government's failure to meet its statutory funds payment obligations was because it regarded the payment of public sector workers a more pressing need at the time. According to the audit query currently being scrutinized by the Public Accounts Committee of Parliament, the decision to prioritize the workers' pay resulted in delays in resourcing agencies such as the Ghana Education Trust Fund and the District Assembly Common Fund. The Deputy Finance Minister, however, told the committee the arrears have since been cleared.
According to the Auditor General, as at the end of 2013, government had paid 657.7 million Ghana cedis from a debt of a little over 1 billion Ghana cedis, leaving a balance of 470 million Ghana cedis to the District Assembly Common Fund. The development, according to the Auditor General, stifled development at the assemblies and further made administration difficult to assemblies in deprived areas that depend entirely on the Common Fund for Development. On the Ghana Education Trust Fund, out of the total mandatory disbursement of 786 million Ghana cedis, government only released 326 million Ghana cedis, leaving a balance of 455 million cedis. This, in the view of the Auditor General, affected ongoing and new projects in the education sector. By responding to the concern, Deputy Finance Minister Kasiela Atoforsen said the money was used to settle government obligations that were crucial at the time, and that measures have been put in place to ensure the statutory payments are settled in good time.
Going forward, we've agreed with the controller and the Bank of Ghana that we are not going to accumulate arrests anymore, referencing SNET, in the sense that in the past we used to pay SNET, we used to pay wages gross. Now we have agreed that we'll be paying net, in the sense that the statutories, like those that are due JRA, those that are due SNET, will be paid into account and immediately transferred to SNET. So we are no longer accumulating arrests as long as SNET is concerned, because we are now moving away from gross payment of compensation to net payment of compensation.
Civil society group Ghana Integrity Initiative has criticized the openness of the Mahama administration. At a workshop in Accra, the group cited a report from its Open Governance Project, which reveals many initiatives by government have been shrouded in secrecy. It stated the performance of Ghana on this transparency dimension of the scorecard is very weak. Linus Atara is a project coordinator.
One major problem is that we don't have enough transparency. That actually the performance of Ghana on this transparency dimension of the scorecard is very weak. And the main problem for the weak performance of transparency is that we don't have a freedom of information law. And you know, transparency is very important. If there is a law, you know, that allows people to access information. But if people are not, you know, cannot access information freely from the government, then the whole idea of transparency evaporates.
In other words, a lot of things are done in secrecy.
Surely. People cannot access the vital documents that you would need to be able to say, okay, we have found out that this amount of monies have been embezzled here, or the government has entered into a major partnership with a foreign company, and these are the requirements that we're supposed to do. For instance, the government enters into a major partnership, you know, with a foreign company, which requires that we do a lot of sacrifices, tax breaks, just name it. And these things are in documents. Now, citizens should be able to access these documents to know what the government is doing on our behalf. But the law is not there, and therefore we are unable to acquire this document. If you go and then request for it, they'll ask you, what's your reason for coming for it, you know?
Fearing there may be a lot more job cuts in the country as a result of the current energy crisis, organized labor has charged government to be a lot more proactive in addressing the #1 problem plaguing industry and Ghanaians in general. It is estimated that about 1,000 workers have so far been laid off in the last few months as a result of the crisis, with other companies threatening to part ways with a lot more of their staff. Addressing a forum ahead of May Day, Trade Union Congress Secretary General Kofi Annan Asamoah said Ghanaians have had to wait too long for the problem to be fixed.
The forum comes even as reports indicate government is highly unlikely to fulfill its promise to bring in power barges at the end of April as a short-term measure to ease the crisis. The TUC Secretary General at the forum to usher in the 2015 National May Day celebration said there are indications more jobs are on the line as a result of the prolonged crisis. He said government has to talk less and fix the problem. A former chief executive of the Volta River Authority, Dr. Charles Reku Brobe, highlighted the indebtedness of the Electricity Company of Ghana to his former workplace, a debt he believes is a major reason why the country finds itself in the crisis.
There should be more concern about the cash flow problems that the sector faces if we are interested in stopping do so at the shortest possible time. ECG owes VRA several billion cedis, and because ECG owes VRA is unable to pay for the gas, and ECG owes Asogli because Asogli had to sign a PPA with ECG before all of this started. Before 2006 or 7, VRA was responsible for generation in Ghana, full stop. Now, ECG, who are wanting to protect as a strategic asset, I don't know whether it's a distribution company or it's now a generation company.
He also warned the situation could get worse if government does not settle what it owes Nigeria for gas supplied for electricity generation.
Despite the fact that people won't tell you the truth or communicate with you at all, I know it for a fact, you know, and it could be pillow talk for all you know, that the Nigerians have written to Ghana to threaten to cut off the gas. It's no longer, you know, and in fact, when they had a problem a few weeks ago, which had nothing to do with a threat, it just happened to coincide with a threat, the whole government system was panicking. Have we paid or have we made arrangements to pay the 120 million? If the Nigerian gas goes, it means that Asogli, which is the bedrock of our thermal generation, will also go. All the thermal plants which are running on gas will also go. So it will be 12 hours, 24. It will be 6 hours, 30.
The chief policy analyst of the Ghana Institute for Public Policy Options also admonished government to inject cash into the energy sector to save the situation from getting worse.
The related development, former chief executive of the VRA says government has failed Ghanaians as far as fixing the power crisis is concerned. In an interview with Joy News, he said government's promise to ship in power barges by the end of April is proving to be unfeasible following reports Car Power has stated it was never contracted to supply emergency power. Dr. Rekurobe, however, maintains the barges could still be used as a strategic reserve plant.
There's a problem of control in this country. There are experts out there whose business is to provide power. Don't handpick somebody. Yesterday you heard Car Power saying that they are not an emergency plant producer. Well, why was the minister doing in June of 2014 telling us that they are an emergency plant producer? There are people who produce and make power available as their business. Let's put up a request for proposal. We need X amount of power to inject into our system for so many years. Please bring us your proposals. That is what is called transparency. You know, it is absolutely absurd that Parliament wants a recall, or Parliament has not seen a contract signed with an international company. You know, these are issues that we must all address. Yes, in the short term, there might be need for power for maybe 3, 4, 5 years, whilst plants are being turned into real power projects. But whoever must supply that, we must procure that on a transparent, cost-effective, competitive basis.
The transport ministers of Ghana, Togo and Benin will meet in Accra next week to map out a strategy to manage flight information amongst the three countries. President John Dramani Mahama indicated that Ghana, Togo and Benin will share resources and build capacity in the management of air transport to help build their respective economies. He was addressing the media at the sidelines of a high-powered meeting with the president of Togo and Benin.
Aviation is growing at a very fast pace in West Africa, and all the three countries are making major investments in aviation. There have been some concerns that were raised by our brothers Togo and Benin in respect of the management of the Accra Flight Information Region. An MOU had been signed earlier in 2008 that had not addressed those concerns or was not effectively implemented. And so a notice was given to disaggregate the Benin and Togo flight information regions into ASECNA, to hand over management of them to ASECNA. I therefore called a meeting of my colleagues from Togo and Benin to discuss the issues of concern to both countries, and also to demonstrate our commitment to maintain the Accra Flight Information Region as one single entity. We therefore agreed that our ministers of transport and directors of civil aviation and their technical personnel, together with ASECNA, will meet next week on Tuesday to discuss the key issues that need to be addressed in the new MOU or agreement between us in order to continue to manage the airspace as one. And some of the key issues are related to sharing of resources, capacity and technical and capacity building, and then also joint management of the flight information region. After the meeting on Tuesday, the agreement that will be reached will be submitted to us.
Government has denied issuing a directive for students in traditional halls in the various tertiary institutions to bear the cost of the utilities. Reports have been rife about students having to pay their own utility bills from next academic year, a move the students have vowed to resist. Addressing students at the third edition of Campus Connect at the Accra Polytechnic today, Deputy Education Minister Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa appealed for calm among the student body, saying what is being bandied about as a directive is merely a suggestion.
Government has not taken a decision to impose a cost-sharing arrangement on utilities as at now, as was proposed at UPSA on the 25th of March. Cabinet is yet to consider the UPSA declaration, so there is no basis for agitation at this point. It is important and healthy for there to be a national debate on the UPSA declaration and for positions to be put out, but it is important that at this point in time there has to be calm, there shouldn't be threats, there's no need for agitation, there's no need for demonstration, because no final decision has been taken as at yet. And as my minister said, when government takes a decision, government will formally and officially communicate to the institutions.
Deputy Communications Minister Felix Kwachofosu at the same event said government will soon transform the Public Works and Maintenance Department into a modern business processing outsourcing center. This, he says, will create some 10,000 jobs.
One of the key things we are doing is what we call the Business Process Outsourcing Center. Now, those of you who are familiar with the Kwame Nkrumah Circle, where a new interchange is coming up, the VIP station, where most of you board vehicles for intercity transport. Just behind it, there is a disused yard that used to belong to the Public Works Department. Now, the Ministry of Communications, in conjunction with other partners, is spending some $8 million to convert that disused yard into a modern business process outsourcing center. Now, the objective is to allow for optimal use and deployment of ICT in business processing. These days, if you go to countries like India and Singapore and China, and even in the United States, BPOs are important facets of their economy. We in Ghana are inclined to do same. Now, this business process outsourcing center will provide grade A facilities for plug-in and play options for businesses so that they can outsource non-core aspects of their business. The most critical component of this whole project, which should be of interest to you, is that it is going to provide job opportunities for 10,000 Ghanaian youth. So those of you who are currently studying ICT-based courses do have hope that in the not too distant future, you will have opportunity to work at a place like this that makes use of the skills that you would have acquired in ICT.
Up next, we bring you business news with Atani. Atani is here with the very latest in business, and apparently you have the very latest economic data for 2014, GDP figures.
So viewers should stick and stay.
Take it away.
Right, my name is Atani. The Ghana Statistical Service has pegged the annual growth rate for 2014 at 4.0%, while that for 2013 was 7.3%. The fourth quarter 2014 GDP at current prices was estimated at 32,258.2 million. The corresponding value recorded for the third quarter of 2014 was 28,310.5 million cedis. The quarter-on-quarter GDP growth rate recorded for the fourth quarter of 2014 was 1.2%. The figure recorded for the third quarter of 2014 was 2.6%. The annual GDP estimate for 2014 at current prices was over 112 million cedis, while that for 2013 was 93,415.9 million cedis. I beg your pardon. And a leading member of the Trades Union Congress, Edward Chere, is cautioning employers to keep the labor laws of Ghana and not use the current power crisis as a pretext to abusing them. Speaking on the Business Live at Joy FM, Edward Chere cautions business owners to set out clear parameters in the equal awarding of employees if productivity must be achieved.
The strong weaknesses of our economy, and particularly the workplace, is that there are no sufficient and effective measures to measure productivity and then to link that one to reward. In many workplaces, there's no clocking systems, and then there's no even targets for workers to be able to achieve. And even if where there are targets, how are those targets determined? How scientific are they? How are they related? Now, again, you also look at numbers at a workplace. The number of workers vis-a-vis the work that is being done, the size of the organization. How is the size of an organization being determined? Is it being determined by the number of workers they have, or by its profitability level, or by what, or level of production, or what? All those things are not properly put in place, and therefore you would have an imbalance so far as productivity, workplace structures, and the remuneration of workers is concerned. Are businesses putting workers at the center of their businesses? To what extent do they treat them? So if you look at conditions of service of a worker, you have to divide it into three. One has to do with wages, the other one has to do with other conditions of service, and the third one has to do with the dignity, the treatment, relations within the workplace. How do they relate with workers? Do they treat them as human beings? Do they make them to participate in decisions that are critical to them? You know, those things at many workplaces are not there.
Now, Ghana could well be described as China's biggest trading partner in Africa. Trade between the two countries increased to a record of $5.6 billion in 2014, while exports from Ghana to China also rose to over $1.4 billion. This was disclosed by China's ambassador to Ghana, San Buahong, when she commissioned an ICT laboratory for the pupils of the Duong Junior High School, from where Rafiq Salam sent this report.
The ultra-modern ICT laboratory was constructed through the joint efforts of the China-Africa People-to-People Friendly Action and the Ghana-China Friendship Association, with support from the Chinese Embassy. The 165,000 Ghana cedis facility has 31 desktop computers and an internet connection. It will serve pupils of the Duan Junior High School and other schools in the Nadoli Kalio district. Even though pupils of the Duan JHS study ICT as a subject, most of them have never seen a real-life computer, apart from the drawings they have seen. Commissioning the facility, the Chinese ambassador stated the successful completion of the project is indicative of the ever-deepening relationship between China and Ghana and Africa at large. She noted that trade between China and Ghana hit $5.6 billion in 2014, adding that China has rolled out various initiatives to facilitate Ghana's export to China. Touching on the agriculture and other potentials of the Upper West region, the Chinese ambassador said she would encourage Chinese entrepreneurs to invest in the region.
The Upper West region has a great potential in agriculture and a huge infrastructure deficit as well. I will encourage more Chinese enterprises to reach out to this region, cooperate with local departments and agencies such as SADC, promote the development of agriculture and the agro-processing sector, invest more to the infrastructure development, fully tap the potential of the region, and promote the overall development of savanna areas of Ghana.
Now, the management of Intercity STC says it is working on installing black boxes in its recent fleet of mini coaches. The installation follows a partnership agreement between Intercity STC and insurance company SIC Life. Managing Director of Intercity STC, Samuel Noama Donko, says the black boxes will help consistently track the vehicles, especially in cases of accidents and other emergencies.
Intercity STC Coaches recently took stock of a fleet of mini coaches from SIC Life Company Limited. Managing Director of the company, Samuel Nuama Donko, is confident the new fleet of mini coaches would expand the proficiency of the corporation across several regional capitals.
The strategy is that we should be able to have some of these buses in all the regions, at least 10 each, so that they can run on the shuttle operations. For example, we started with 25 of these ones from Smythe, which were being deployed on the Aflao route, Accra-Aflao route, and then recently we started with Accra-Koforidua. So if we get about 10 in each region, we should be able to run some short shuttle operations like Tamale-Bolga, Tamale-Yendi, etc., etc. So that is what informed our decision to go into partnership with SIC Life.
Management of Intercity STC Limited say this fleet of many coaches would include new technologies such as black boxes.
We are making sure that we are introducing this facility of a Wi-Fi for people to have access to the international world. We are bringing the toilet facilities on board. You don't have to get down and use the washroom anytime you want it. We are going to set people on board. These are innovations that we want to introduce.
That's it for business. My name is Eton. I'm saying many thanks for your time. Sports is next.
Top of our agenda this evening, and goalkeeper Richard Kinsing lost his clean sheet record after letting in 2 goals as Great Olympics rallied to draw 2-2 with New Dubiasi United. The former Black Stars first choice Globesman had gone 4 matches without conceding a goal and played a key role in the Olympics revival campaign. Goals from Kwame Boateng and Emmanuel scored and actually cancelled out those goals from New Dubiasi and managed to split the points. Midfielder Godwin Atram spoke to Joy Sports after the game.
Perception about the league is that since we joined, it has been one way or the other. Olympics were down, and we're trying to bring the team back to position not to go to the relegation. The league itself is very strong league. Believe me, the boys are really working very, very hard. The only thing we all need is all about the organization more to let the league grow. It hasn't been bad at all. It has been a very high level since we joined, because all the clubs right now playing against Olympics, they try to work they want to fight, they want to play against Olele, they want to play against Godwin, they want to tackle and all these kind of things. So for me, I think coming back to the league, I've been good omen for Ghana football and for me as well, because my motivation is to come back home and give something back to the society, and by God's grace everything is going on well. All the fans, all the journalists, spectators, management, GFA people, everyone appreciate.
All right, let's talk about the milestones. A couple of interesting things happening. The Nathaniel Asamoah getting up to 12 goals. Then, first of all, let's look at the results in full, just on your screen for you there. Just have that right there. So let's have a look at that. Of course, as Ashcode, who drew 1-1 with Hearts of Oak out there. Not only that, there's also Wafa, who drew goalless with Wa All Stars. Bekum Chelsea beat Inter Allies by 2-1. Disappointing for Inter Allies, back-to-back defeats there. It's Midiama FC, who also beat BA United by 3-1. Nathaniel Asamoah scored 2 goals there, so he's currently leading that, of course. But Chimbi United lead Hazakeh, so they beat them by 2-0. Liberty Professionals returning to the beat the Jana Stars by 1-0, returning to the car end of Park. Kumasi Asante Kotoko beat Heart Alliance by 4-0. Olympics drew 2-2 with New Dubiasi. Let's have a look at the table and find out how these results have impacted that table for you. Ashanti Gold have opened a 4-point lead because the Jana Stars were not able to win the game, so they're up there with 29 points. Wafa are now into second with 25 points. The Jana Stars follow with 25 points, and it's because of the head-to-head record. That's why it's the same points, but they are currently third. Midiama SC, Kotoko, Bekum Chelsea, Liberty Professionals, Wa All Stars in that order. When we look at the final part of the table, that has Inter Allies, it has Hearts of Oak, of course, there's Heart Alliance, there's Bechim United, Olympics, Hazakeh, Edubiasi, and BA United. Boxer that you love to hear from, Ahite Powers, has been speaking about this. Now, he says that the fight will go the full length, but of course, he's tipping Manny Pacquiao to win this.
Oh, the thing is, me, if I'm going to say something like our
former champion said, as Anderson said, me, I know, and this fight, there's no knockout. This fight, Pacman and Mayweather, no knockout. They are going to finish all the 12 rounds, but definitely after the 12 rounds, Pacman is going to win on points.
Why Pacman?
Pacman will win because the thing is, Pacman has plenty hands. You understand me? If Mayweather hit him, well, he will make sure that he's hitting him double. You understand me? If they are going to get they are going to give the real, very correct, Pacman will win. So you just trust me and mark my words. I know what I'm talking about. I'm a boxer.
He says we should trust him. Aite Power says we should trust him. He's reminding us that he's a very great boxer.
Oh yeah.
I mean, who are you? Who are you going to be betting for if you had to bet?
I was going to ask you the same thing.
You're going to ask me.
Yeah.
Well, I think Mayweather should do it.
Mayweather.
I'm saying this
why
cautiously because I think that he's able to stop all those punches. Manny Pacquiao is going to come with a lot of punches, but I think that he's going to be very careful because anytime Manny Pacquiao goes up with his 12 lash, 8 here and there, the uppercuts, he could take his time and land in heavy blows there. And that's why he has to be careful because remember what Bradley did to him, smashed him onto the ground. That's why he has to be careful. It's going to be a tight fight, but I think Mayweather should be able to do it.
We'll just wait. We'll see how it all pans out.
We can't wait for it. We'll be hearing from Bukom Banco as well as we go in all of that to find out how to do it. That'll be all for sports. Israel, join us with some more. You have a good night.
Now, that a pregnant woman would deliver at home is not exactly news, as it happens a lot of the time. The case of 25-year-old resident of Kufroidia Zongo in the eastern region is however odd because she delivered at the entrance to her home having been turned away from the hospital. The midwife at the Kufroidia Zongo Health Center is said to have refused to deliver the expectant mother, Bushira Safiano, simply because she had not shaved her pubic hair. A report by Haruna Yusuf Company.
Joint news checks indicate Bushira Safiano, who showed up at the health center in labor, was asked to go home and shave her pubic hair before returning to the facility. It was on her way back home that she delivered right in front of her home. Members of the health committee of the Kufroidia Health Center are said to have been outraged by the incident, describing the conduct of the midwife as unprofessional and have called on the New Drabi Municipal Health Director to immediately transfer her.
News reached me several times that Esther, the nurse over there, behaves very badly towards the client who normally come to the clinic. She feels very bossy and she will not hesitate insulting the client. There was a time when a pregnant woman came and she was about to deliver. This nurse asked her to go home and shave. That private part was as bushy as Dodua Forest. Therefore, she should go back, shave, and come back before she could attend to her.
The midwife, Esther Mensah, would not agree to an interview, but has denied the claims against her.
The bad things that men do are written on brass, but the good ones are written on bodies. Since that midwife came here, she has never assisted anybody before. She has never helped anybody before in the community. And you know, many persons starting I swear again in F. Say, I am a trained, I am a professionally trained. I can't do that. But say, when you can say, if you need to talk, that's what has happened.
Now, before we go a quick run through our top stories, government has revised the date for the arrival of the emergency power barges to augment power supply after the company contracted to produce them said the earliest date it can deliver power will be September this year. While organized labor says government will have to talk less and rather fix the problem, even as more companies indicate they will have to lay off workers as a result of the energy crisis. Pressure group Occupy Ghana says ask government to scrap any plans to lay off public sector workers as part of the IMF financial assistance program and urged workers to wear red on May Day to protest the way the economy is being managed. And minority in parliament threatened court action to stop proposed initial public offer of Agricultural Development Bank in the latest in a standoff between management of the bank and its workers. That'll be all for the bulletin. My name is Uzulai. Thank you very much for watching. Have a good evening.
is Joy News Prime.